Good day, grade 12 learners, and welcome to today's English Fall lesson. My name is Elizabeth Meyer, and this lesson is brought to you by the Gauteng Department of Education in collaboration with Sibona Discovery Centre. It's so wonderful to see you again. Today, we are obviously focusing on your prelim exam, specifically literature. So, let's start immediately. Tomorrow, the 1st of September, you will be writing English First Additional Language, Paper 2 Literature. And this is why I'm here today. Well, to assist you and give you a few tips to make it easier for that paper for tomorrow. I'm sure you're just as excited as I am. To start off, let's start with the format. Are you familiar with the exam paper format that you will receive tomorrow? Do you know what is expected of you when you write this literature paper? Well, by the end of this session, you'll know exactly what to expect and what to look forward to. I really suggest you make some notes because there's a lot of information I'd like to share with you. Let's start with the basics first. Now, this is what your paper would look like, almost. Now, your duration is, let me just go back a sec, your duration is 2.5 hours, which means you have more than enough time. That's for 70 marks. Now, please remember this. You have enough time. You have to use it wisely. Now, your question paper consists of 4 sections. You are only required to answer 2 questions in all. I'm going to repeat this because this is probably the most important part you have to remember. 4 sections, 2 questions you need to answer. So there's 1 question from each section. Well, the 2 sections you'll be doing. But be careful. Remember, we are including all the set works. So you have to know exactly what you need to answer. Now, let's look at that 4 sections I was talking about. We have first, your section A will be your novel. Your novel comprises out of Jekyll and Hyde and, of course, Cry the Beloved Country. Your section B is your drama. There you will find My Children, My Africa and Macbeth. Can you see what I mean? How many set works are included? Now, each one of these sections will count 35 marks. So, section A was your novel. Section B is the drama. But maybe at your school you're not doing novel or drama. Maybe you're more interested in section C, which is, of course, the short stories. And yes, lastly, you'll find section D, the poetry. So, we have 4 sections in your paper, but you have to know exactly which ones you need to answer. Remember, you only have to answer 2 sections. Now let's look at your table of contents. The paper you're going to receive is quite big, up to 25, 26 pages tomorrow. Don't be scared. There is an index, and this is probably the most important thing you have to look at. Now, let's go step by step. This is basically what it's going to look like. Section A is your novel. The first question will be questions based on the novel Cry the Beloved Country. Question 2 will be the strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Now, if you look at the index, we have indicated the page numbers to you. Section B will be Macbeth and My Children, My Africa. Section C is the short stories, and here there will be 2 short stories. And section D is your poetry, and there will be 2 poems. The most important thing is you have to answer the questions you have been taught at school. In other words, don't answer everything. It's not for you. Choose only the sections you need to answer. Let me give you an example. If you did Cry the Beloved Country, perhaps, and let's say poetry, you will be answering question 1 and, of course, question 6. In other words, section A, question 1, and poetry, the 2 poems. Maybe you did the drama, My Children, My Africa, and the short stories. Then you will be answering section B, question 4, and section C, question 5.1 and 5.2. Now, don't be discouraged when tomorrow you see this paper. Open your page and look at the index and immediately recognize which sections you have to do. You don't even have to read the rest of the paper. Only focus on the parts you need to complete. Remember, at school you have studied 2 genres. Those are the 2 genres you have to complete. And as you can see, it will make up then your 70 marks. So, you have a choice. You need to ask yourself, which genres did I study at school? Which was my genre number 1 and which is my genre number 2? And what we're giving you on the next page is a checklist. And you'll see it looks something like this. It tells you very clearly which sections they are and the question numbers. And you can use this checklist to tick off what are you doing. Now, once again, remember, only 2 genres must be done. And this is now important for the final exam as well. Remember, your prelim is just like your final exam. So make sure you do the correct genres. Now, how to manage your reading time? Remember, I told you that you will have 2.5 hours. That is more than enough time to complete the paper. You have to take your time and you have to manage it well. So let's see how to do this. In your 10 minutes reading time that will be given to you, read the instructions. Make sure you understand exactly what you need to do. Secondly, use the table of contents, that's your index, to locate the questions you have to answer. Remember, once again, don't answer everything, only the 2 genres you completed at school. Then, refer to the correct page number and find the extracts. Read them. Use your 10 minutes reading time to read your extracts. It will give you a good idea what's going on and the type of questions we're going to ask. You'll be able to place your extract in the set work to know where in the play or in the book it appears. Again, decide the genre that you're going to answer first. It doesn't matter if you start with poetry first or if you are doing short stories first. You can decide. So make the choice. Choose the one you're most comfortable with first and do it. Now, in your 10 minutes reading time, we said you have to read and read and read some more. Make sure you use your 10 minutes wisely. Those are given to you so that you can familiarize yourself with the paper. And yes, so that you can relax. So, read your extracts. Make sure you know exactly what should be done. After your 10 minutes reading time, well, It's a good time to start then. You'll have time to think exactly about each question. And then, obviously, you need to write. And I really like this picture in front of you. And this is what you should be doing with every question. Read your question 3 times, think twice, and then write once. Such good advice. Read 3 times, make sure you understand, think twice, and then write down. So, what are the genres I'm going to focus on today? Now, you've seen there's quite a number of genres. There is Cry the Beloved Country and The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. There's Macbeth and My Children, My Africa. There's the short stories, which is quite a lot of them, and of course the poems. But today, I am focusing on the novel, Cry the Beloved Country. I'll focus on extracts from the drama, My Children, My Africa. And for short stories, I thought Forbidden Love is always good. If you're doing poetry, we're looking on The Grasshopper and The Cricket. But please, don't think if your genre is not there that this series is not applicable to you. This is so important because I will be discussing questions that are asked across all genres. So, make sure you have your pen ready. I'm sure you're going to write a lot. Let's start. I want to show you the extracts I'll be referring to in the course of this broadcast lesson. I'm starting with Cry the Beloved Country. This is just to give you an idea. Remember, these are example questions. Now, the extract will look something like this. We will give you, and this is really important, that you obviously have to read the extract. And as I said, use your 10 minutes reading time. You have more than enough time. Now, you will notice on the top of your extract, clues are given to you in brackets. In this case, it says Stephen Khumalo feels compassion for his son. It gives you an idea where we are. Now, to help you even further, you'll see we have at the bottom of the extract given you that it's in Book 2, Chapter 12. You might not know exactly what in every chapter happens, but Book 2 will give you a good idea where you are. The first thing you need to do is to place the extract in context. Where does this extract fit in the whole big novel? Is it in the beginning? Is it in the middle? Or is it in the end of a novel? What has happened? What happened before this? And what's going to happen next? Now, to answer our questions that will follow, we need to know this extract. So, I'm quickly going to read it to you. Now remember, even if you're not doing Cry the Beloved Country, it is still important just to listen. Stephen Khumalo feels compassion for his son. Still kneeling, the father took his son's hands, and they were not lifeless anymore, but clung to his, seeking some comfort, some assurance. And the old man held them more strongly and said again, "Be of good courage, my son." The white warder, hearing these cries, came in and said, but not with unkindness, "Old man, you must go now." I'm going, sir, but give us a little longer." So the warder said, "Well, only a little time longer." And he withdrew. "My son, dry your tears." So the boy took the cloth that was offered him and dried his tears. He kneeled on his knees, and though the sobbing was ended, his eyes were seeing and troubled. "My son, I must go now." "Stay well, my son. I shall care for your wife and your child. It is good, he says. Yes, he says it is good. But his thoughts are not on my wife or child. Where his thoughts are, there is no wife or child. Where his eyes are, there is no marriage. My son, I must go now. He stood up. But the boy caught his father by the knees and cried out to him, "You must not leave me! You must not leave me!" So this is the extract from Cry the Beloved Country. Can you place it in where it happens in the book? Yes, of course. Stephen Khumalo is visiting his son for the very last time. Absalom is obviously in jail, and he has been sentenced to death. And this will be the last time that Stephen will talk to his son. So now that we know where the extract fits in the story, let's proceed. The next one we're looking at is My Children, My Africa. And you will see we've done exactly the same. You will have chance to read the extract. Remember, this is so important. And read it more than once. You've got more than enough time. Again, there are clues given to you. In this case, in My Children, My Africa, Mr. M and Isabel are talking. Well, we don't know what they're talking about as yet, but we'll figure it out. And then there's another clue. Right at the bottom, you'll see it's an Act 1, Scene 3, which means it's quite early in the play. So let me quickly read this to you so that you can get an idea where we are. Mr. M says, "My apologies for descending on you out of the blue like this, but I've been looking for you high and low. One of your schoolmates said I would find you here." Isabel says, "Don't apologize. It's a pleasure to see you again, Mr. M." Mr. M delighted. "Mr. M, how wonderful to hear you call me that." Isabel says, "You must blame Tommy for my familiarity." "Blame him? On the contrary, I will thank him most gratefully. Hearing you call me Mr. M, like all the others at my school, gives me the happy feeling that you are also a member of my very extended family." "I'd like to be." "Then welcome to my family, miss." Before he can say it, "Isabel, if you please, Mr. M, just plain Isabel." "Then doubly welcome, young Isabel." "I thank you, kind sir." "You have great charm, young lady. I can understand now how you managed to leave so many friends behind you after only one visit to the school. Hardly a day passes without someone stopping me and asking, 'When is Isabel Dyson and her team coming back?' Well, when are we?" "Oh, you would still welcome a return visit?" "But of course." "Why so emphatically, of course?" "Because I enjoyed the first one so emphatically very much." "The unruly behavior of my young family wasn't too much for you?" "Anything else?" Right. So this is our extract. Can you place it? Yes, of course. You will remember, if you're doing My Children, My Africa, that Isabel and her team went for a literary quiz and a debate. So this is now the second time they're meeting again. Let's move on. Remember, it's easy to look at all the clues given to you. Now, in Forbidden Love, I took a short little extract, and it's right at the end of a story. "Hello, Darby," she began. "Remember me? You beat up my brother because he's in love with your sister. Okay, now I've brought my brother to beat you up because you were in love with his sister. Fair enough?" "You lie," Darby said hoarsely. "I thought you'd say that, so I brought some proof. Where do you suppose I got this handsome picture of yours, Darby? And just in case you deny that too, I would like your father to read these flaming letters you once wrote to me." She pushed a neatly tied bundle of letters to the old man, saying tartly, "And to think, I treasured these letters because they came from the only man I ever loved." The old man seemed only then to be galvanized into life. "Get out! Get out of my house!" he shrieked. Right, can you place that in context? Now, you remember in the short story Forbidden Love, it's close to the very end of a story when this happens. Now, what are we focusing on? We know the extracts now. So what are the questions I'll be focusing on today? Well, there's a whole range of them. First, we're going to look at those giveaway questions. In other words, the ones that are really easy. I'll be looking at setting. I'll be looking at the false question. There's character questions, and trust me, there are a number of them. Irony, figures of speech, stage directions, theme questions, and lastly, open-ended questions. Now, you have to remember, all these questions are related to every set work. In other words, whether you're doing Cry the Beloved or you're doing The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, whether you are doing Much Room Africa or Macbeth, in whichever short story, these questions will appear. So let's go through them. Are you ready? Now, your very first question of your paper is what we call a giveaway question. These are really, really easy questions. Usually, they're on the format of a table where you need to fit column A with column B. Usually, they are based on characters. So you have to know exactly who are the characters in your text. What do they do? What happens in this story? And where does it take place? These are what we call basic details. Now, I know that sometimes it can get quite confusing between all the characters, especially between the novels and the short stories and the drama even. You need to make a list of all the characters in the set works you're doing to make sure you don't mix them up. That Mr. M doesn't end up in Cry the Beloved Country, or Isabel ends up in Forbidden Love. So make sure you know exactly which character belongs to which story. It's called basic details. But don't mix up those names. And this is a present almost. It's 4 marks that you can get easily. And this is how your question paper will start. Now, let's give you an example. In My Children of Africa, the question would look something like this. Choose a description from column B that matches or fits column A. And you'll be giving 4 options. Now, these are the columns, as you can see, and we've listed for you 4 characters and 5 descriptions. Now, it literally, we're only testing your knowledge of main and minor characters. This is really easy. So make sure you know exactly who belongs where. Now, you're required only to write down the number and the letter. But if you don't want to do that, you can write column A, the name, and the reference. As you can see, this is really very, very easy. Now remember, I'm giving you an example. This type of question will be in Cry the Beloved Country, Macbeth, any of the short stories as well. The next question that you can look forward to is setting. Now, please make a note of this. When you answer the setting question, and this one will usually count 2 marks, make sure you give us enough information. Setting doesn't only refer to the place. No, it refers to the time as well. So, first of all, tell us where the story is taking place. Second of all, tell me when is it taking place. Now, how are you going to know that? Well, look at the dialogue between your characters. Look at what they are doing and how they're speaking or acting. That will give you a good idea where you are. Now remember, again, setting refers to time as well as place. So don't mix that one up. 2 marks. So let me give you an example question. This is for Cry the Beloved Country. Now, our question will be something like this. Just to remind you, still kneeling, the father took his son's hands, as they were not lifeless anymore, but clung to his, seeking some comfort, some assurance. And the old man held them strongly and said again, "Be of good courage, my son." The white warder, hearing these cries, came in and said, but not of unkindness, "Old man, you must go now." If we just look at this extract, it's actually very easy to determine the place and the setting. There are so many clues given to us. So in the exam, the question will be something like, describe the setting of this extract. Now remember, you are referring to the specific extract that was given to you. Do you have the answer? I'm sure you do. Now, the setting is in the prison, so that's the where Absalom escaped after they've heard that there's no leniency and he's going to be hanged. When? That's when Stephen visiting Absalom before his return to Ndocheni. Okay, can you see what we've done? I've told you where it's taking place and when. So the when is all about when in the plot it's taking place. So where is the setting? Include for me then when it's taking place. Where in the novel or in the drama or in the short story this is happening. Do you want to try another one? Here's another one. For my children, my Africa. Let's see. Remember, time and place. Now, again, I'll give you a little extract. My apologies for sending on you out of the blue like this, but I've been looking for you high and low. One of your schoolmates said I would find you here. Where's here? Let's see. So the question is, obviously, describe the setting of the extract. 2 marks. Do you know the answer? I'm sure you do. Now, the setting is at Kamdebou Girls High. Very important. Now, remember, you have to get the spelling right. Spelling doesn't count, but please make sure your spelling is right. If we can't read what it says, can't give you the mark. So we're very specific. At Kamdebou Girls High. So that's our place. What about the time? So the time is when Mr. N informs Isabel about the English literally quiz. Does it make sense to you? So time doesn't have to be an exact number as in 12 o'clock or 3 o'clock. Tell me the time as in when it's happening in the play. As to the plot. Does it make sense to you now? I'm sure it does. And I'm sure you'll get this one right tomorrow when we ask that. So the next type of question is a false question. Now, as you can see, they are quite easy questions, these, which means all learners should be able to answer them. But as you've seen, you need to know your story quite well as well. Now, with a false question, there will be a statement, and you will be required to prove that the statement given to us is false. Now, it sounds easy, but be careful. I need you to read the statement very carefully and focus on the fact that it is incorrect. Again, remember our clue what we said in the beginning of this series. Read 3 times, think twice. So make sure you read that statement very carefully. Find the incorrect part of a statement. Then rewrite the statement by giving me the right information. It's no use just including the word not. That's not going to work. I want the correct fact there. Let's give you an example. My children, my Africa. Here's the question. Why is the following statement false? And then we give you a statement. My young family in line 27 refers to Mr. M's children. Now, we will always give you a line reference. If there is a line reference, make sure you go back to your extract just to see where it fits in exactly. So we're quoting here, my young family, and we're saying that refers to Mr. M's children. It's only 1 mark, but it's really an important mark. So, does Mr. M have children? Let's see. Your answer is no. He doesn't have biological children. The young family refers to his learners. Now, can you see here? You could either have told me, no, the family doesn't refer to the fact that Mr. M has biological children, or you could have said to me, the young family refers to his learners, and they are his children. Can you see how easy is that? But remember, it's all about facts that you have to give me. It only counts 1 mark. But if you think now, we've had the 4-mark question on columns, we had the setting, that is 2 marks, and now we have a false question. Well, that gives you already 7 marks, and we've just started. How easy is that? Now, obviously, the questions are going to get a little bit more tougher. And I think this is where it's going to happen. So make your notes. Character traits. And I know this is sometimes one of the more difficult questions. But if you know the recipe, it's easy to answer. So if we start with character questions, one of them will be on character traits. So what is a character trait? Now, do you remember when you studied your text? There were major characters and obviously minor characters, and they each displayed their own personality. And that is exactly what a character trait is. It's to show what the person's personality is. What makes him or her what she is or who she is. So if I were to ask you to describe yourself, what adjectives would you use to describe your personality? Well, that's the same as a character trait. Now, you could refer to yourself as respectful, cooperative, creative, but I'm sure you've got negative traits as well, like impatient perhaps, and unhappy perhaps, or lazy. It doesn't matter. The important part is to know that a character trait is the personality of your character. So when today, when you're going through your text, each time ask yourself, what is my character trait or this character? Now let's look at a few questions. We're going now to a short story. Now, I don't know if Forbidden Love will be in tomorrow's paper. You have 8 short stories to look at if you are doing short stories at your school. Now, again, remember my tip. Make a list of the characters in each story and you can write down the character traits next to them. That will be easy to remember. And remember, all of these notes you'll be used for the final exams as well. So, back to Forbidden Love, which is a really very nice story. Here's our question. What does the extract reveal about Darby's character? Now, I know some of you haven't read the short story. It doesn't matter. I want you to focus on the type of question we're asking. Can you see? I want to know, in this extract, how does Darby's character shown? What is his character? Now, this question is going to ask, well, it's going to count 2 marks. Why? Because first of all, you need to tell me his character trait. And second of all, you'll have to give me a reason as to why you say that. Now, you'll see on your screen, it says substantiate your answer. Substantiate means give me evidence. Prove to me what you're saying. That's as easy as that. Now remember, I'm sure you have a list of those action words in your book. Make sure you go through them tonight again. So, substantiate, prove to me. So do you remember when we read the extract, he screamed at her and he said, "You lie." Do you remember that? So what does that show us about his character? Well, the best word to describe him is a hypocrite. I'm not sure if you know what the meaning of a word means. I'll explain it to you. Now, Darby, you'll see in the short story, is against all relationships across, well, the color line. But he has a relationship with a girl of a different race. In front of everyone, he pretends that, he's completely against dating anyone across the color line. But behind everybody's back, that's exactly what he did. Now, we call somebody like that a hypocrite. Somebody who pretends to have certain beliefs, want to show us what's right, but his actions speaks a whole different way. And this is exactly what Darby is. Now, can you see how I've answered the question? First, I told him that he's a hypocrite. That is his character trait. And then I explained why I'm saying he's a hypocrite for the 2nd mark. Now, you remember, your answer must always refer back to the text. Always, always give me facts from the text to prove it. And let's try Machoroma Africa. We're going to have something close. What does the extract reveal about Isabel's character? Now, can you see it's almost the same kind of question. So whichever set what you're doing, this is the kind of question we're going to ask. Substantiate. In other words, give me proof. Now, let's look at your answer. We're saying Isabel is vivacious, lively, well, respectful. Now, if you don't know what vivacious means, that's fine. Then use a word that you know. Remember, you can't get stuck on happy, sad, or angry. You have to give us a bit more than that. Now, do you remember the extract? She was so respectful to Mr. M. So she's respectful. There's your 1 mark. But then we need to substantiate. We need to give evidence. She puts Mr. M at ease when he apologizes. Now, or we can say she's friendly. Do you agree? Yes, of course. He wants statues or symbols of the apartheid regime removed. Can you see that? It's really easy. Give me a character trait and then explain it. There's your character trait. So this is the recipe to answer these questions. Give me a word and look at how we answer. We say she, or obviously he, is, and a word, an adjective that describes them. Will you remember that recipe? He or she is and an adjective. That works for character traits. And then the second part, give me facts. Right. Oh, we've got character traits. And now we have to move on to a little bit more difficult question on character. Character's attitude. Now, your attitude is how you feel about what's happening to you in a story. So, if you were the character in that story, how would you describe it? How do you feel about what's happening to you? Now, in other words, there are so many options here for you. I really need you to pretend to put yourself in your character's shoes, because then you'll be able to figure out what's the attitude. I'm sure your parents sometimes tell you, don't come with that attitude. Oh yeah, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly how you're feeling. So let's look at an attitude question in My Children, My Africa. Again, we'll give you lines. In this case, obviously lines 8 to 15. And now be careful. Can you see what we do? We give you only part of those lines. We'll give you the first 3 words and the last 3 words. It's your job to go back to the extract, back to lines 8 to 15 and read the rest, the complete quote. Don't forget it. Go back to your extract. Our question is, explain Isabel's attitude towards Tommy in these lines. So we're very specific as to the lines. Now we're going to count 2 marks, and then you have to give us at least 2 facts. Now, can you see again? How is she feeling? How is her attitude? She feels angry. She's livid. She's frustrated with Tommy. Why not? As she cannot understand why they can no longer be friends. Can you see what I've done here? I tell you how she's feeling. What is her attitude towards Tommy? And then I tell you why. Now, always remember, you have to tell me everything. Pretend I don't know the story. Tell me why Isabel is feeling like this. Let me give you another question. State one difference in the attitude of Tommy and Isabel. So now we're focusing on differences. How's Isabel feeling? How's Tommy feeling? So this is another way of asking the question. Now again, I can say, Isabel is angry, she's frustrated. And Tommy? Tommy is careful, he's direct, he's cautious. And that will give you my 2 marks. So there's 2 ways to ask this. I could either ask you how one character feels about another character, or I can ask you what is the difference in attitude between 2 characters. Make sure if I ask the difference between them, you tell me exactly how this character feels and what this character feels. Now, be careful. Make sure you tell me exactly. You will say, Isabel is angry. Don't say he or she. Sometimes there's two she's and too many he's. So rather stick to the names of the characters so that we know exactly who you're referring to. If it's an explain question, tell me what Isabel is feeling. Tell me why. Now, I'm going to remind you once again that these types of questions are the questions that's going to be asked across the board. Whether you're doing Macbeth, Jekyll or Hyde, Cry the Beloved, short stories, the same type of questions are going to appear. Now, state of mind. Oh, here's another one. So, can you see there are quite a number of character questions we can ask? We started off character traits, we've got the attitude, and now state of mind. So in Cry the Beloved Country, you'll remember now where we are in the jail. The question is, give one word which best describes Stephen Khumalo's state of mind in this extract. Substantiate your answer. Ooh. Read it again. Give one word which best describes Stephen Khumalo's state of mind in this extract. Substantiate your answer. They're giving us two instructions here. One, they want one word, but also we need to substantiate. We need to prove to them what we're saying. Or they can change the question and they can say, what does this extract reveal about Stephen Khumalo's state of mind? Substantiate your answer. It's the same question. I want to know, what is his state of mind and why are you saying that? So, let's look at the answer. How is he feeling? Well, he's devastated. He's distressed or just plain sad. Can you see how easy this is? So first answer my question. What is his state of mind? And give me one word to explain that. And then, for your second mark, you'll give me some facts. Well, Stephen Khumalo has to convey the news to John that Absalom is in prison for killing a white man, Arthur. And Matthew is an accomplice. Right, so obviously he's sad. Can you see the facts that I'm focusing on? He's feeling sad because he has to tell his brother that Stephen's only son is going to prison and they've killed someone. And that John's son, Matthew, is part of this. That must be horrible. Okay, 2 marks. Are you still there? I hope you are. Let's go on. Right, so there's your state of mind and there's your example. Now, by now you have probably a question for what's the difference between character and our attitude? Now, I thought you'd ask that. And I found it so nice. Character is the way you are when no one is watching. The real you, your real personality. And this is not going to change anyway. This is how you are. These are your qualities. These are your values, the things that you makes you. But what's your attitude? Your attitude is how you approach something, a situation or a person. We call this a surface emotion. Why surface? It's not deep. Maybe now you have an attitude towards this person, but tomorrow you're all fine again. Can you see the difference? Character is what's deep inside of you that really shows your true personality. Attitude is just how you're acting across people. It's what you like and you don't like. I found a cute quote to help you understand. Here we go. Make no mistake between my personality and my attitude. My personality is who I am, and my attitude depends on who you are. Does it make sense to you now? I'm sure it does. So your character's personality, their character trait is the true character of who they are. But the attitude depends on the situation. It's going to change. So that's why you need to be able to see the difference. I'm sure you're going to remember this quote. My personality is who I am, and my attitude depends on who you are. Right. Now, let's move over to your next big one. So we know character traits and personality and attitude, but the way your characters speak is also very important. And this is where tone comes in. Tone is not what they say, it's how you say it. Let me give you an example. I've got one there for you. It says, this is a conversation between a mom and a daughter, and the mama says, I'm sorry, we can't afford to go on vacation this year. And the daughter would say, what a surprise. Now, it's all about the way she says it. And obviously, in this case, you can realize that she's very sarcastic. So that's what tone is. It's not what we say, it's how we say it. Now let's look at the next one. So two friends are having a little chat, and the one says, I've bought you a gift. And the second one replies, wow, that is so lovely. Can you hear the tone changed? The person is cheerful and grateful. Wow, that's awesome. I've got another one for you. My son has spent his whole life not taking things seriously, and now he expects to pass this exam. He has no hope at all. Sure, this tone is very pessimistic. Can you see that? So when we ask you a tone question, you have to pretend you can hear it. Your characters say it. Remember, it's not what they say, it's how they're going to say it. Here's another one. What the hell has happened here? Is this your idea of a joke? Do you think it's a joke? This is angry, eh? Tone. Now, let's go to Forbidden Love, our short story. You remember in the extract, the old man started screaming, Get out of my house, he shrieked. Now, in the exam, we can ask a question like, what tone would the old man use in this line? Can you see it counts only one mark? So I want one word. What kind of tone will he use? And then for B, I want to know why would he be using this tone? Can you see how similar these questions are? We ask a question, we want one answer, and then we ask you why. Now, can you think of a tone word to describe this man's tone when he says get out? I'm sure you could. He's angry. Of course he's angry. He's enraged. So that's one mark. Can you see I'm just answering my question first. What tone would you like to use? Angry. And then the next one will be, why is he so angry? Mr. Randolph has just heard that his son has a relationship with Salome. Now, to make matters worse, as I've said, they are of different colors, of different races, and at that time this wasn't allowed. And that's why he's so angry. Can you see I'm giving you facts? Mr. Randolph heard his son has a relationship. Can you see how easy it is? So break it up for yourself. Tone, what tone? Think of you in your head tomorrow. pretend you can hear their voices, give me a tone word, and then explain to me why they would use that word. Can you see how easy this is? Now, let's try another one. I've got the Cry the Beloved Country again. I know we're jumping between genres, but I know you guys are the expert. Absalom says in that little line, he says, "You must not leave me, you must not leave me." Do you remember that right at the end of our extract? So what tone would you use here? Can you see this completely different than the extract we had in Forbidden Love? It's completely different. So what tone, in what way is he going to say this? And of course, the answer is desperation. He's desperate for his dad not to leave him. He is fearful. He is so afraid. And why? Well, the why is obvious. He knows he's going to die. He knows he's never going to see his father again. He knows he's going to be all alone. Can you see how easy it is? Absalom is so afraid his dad is going to leave him. And that's why he doesn't want him. So our tone word is desperation or fear. And why? Well, he knows this is the last time he's going to see him. It's actually so sad. Hey? Now, if you look at that little circle, sometimes if you struggle to figure out the tone, you can look at the words they're using. From whose point of view are they speaking? The way the sentence is constructed. Is it formal or informal? That will help you. But if I were you, I would study my tone words. I hope your teacher has given you some tone words. Study them. It helps. Our next one that we're moving on to is, of course, irony. Once again, remember, whether you are doing short stories or poetry or drama, there will be an irony question. I bet you. Now, you know what irony is by now. We use it so much. It's when we expect one thing or we say one thing, but something completely different happens. Or we mean something different. Now, the most important thing I need you to see here is the little word but. The irony question can be quite tricky, but if you know the recipe, you can do it. It usually counts 2 marks. And for you to get those 2 marks, you have to tell me both sides. So let's go to Forbidden Love again. The question is, consider the story as a whole. So now we have not only focusing on the extra, we're looking at the whole story. And explain why Dora's words when she greets Darby is ironical. Ironical means it's irony. Why is her words an example of irony? Now, can you remember what she said to him? Do you remember me? That was her exact words. So why are her words, do you remember me, an example of irony? Well, do you know? It's ironic because Dora asked Darby if he remembers her, as if they don't know each other. But, can you see where my but comes in? Darby knows exactly who she is. Why? They have a child together. You can see the irony. She is pretending that they don't know each other, but we as the reader know exactly that they do know each other. They've got a child together. So when you answer this question, make sure you give me one part to say, this is what I've expected, but this is what's been given. And then you'll get your 2 marks. Make sure both parts and connect them, glue them together with the little word but. Yeah, unfortunately, if you can't do that, it's either 2 or 0. So this is why you need to get this one right. Now let's move over to figures of speech. Figures of speech do not only appear in the poetry question. No, they are everywhere. And even in the extracts tomorrow that will be given to there is going to be some kind of figure of speech. Now, I know you know your figures of speech, but let me just quickly remind you of the more often used ones. Alliteration. Oh, you know that one. Big brown bears bake bread. Blah, 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 blah. There's always a reason why the sound is used. Oxymoron is burning ice. Remember that one when two ideas that are completely different are placed next to each other to make a new idea? It's like a known secret. Secrets aren't supposed to be known. Onomatopoeia is what you hear. Remember, sound imitation. So that's one you have to look for. Our favorite, the metaphor. You know that one. It's raining cats and dogs. Simile, that's probably the easiest one to recognize, isn't it? Irony is a figure of speech. Personification, we've got one here. Books flew off the shelves. Obviously, books can't fly. But it's personification. And of course, I don't know if you can see that one. Hyperbole. Yes. Knock me down with a feather. That's when you exaggerate. Okay. So make sure you be able to recognize your figures of speech. Let's give you an example. In Forbidden Love, there's a question. Again, we'll give you a line or a reference somewhere in the extract. And this is the line we've given you here. And just in case you deny that one too, I'd like your father to read these flaming letters you once wrote to me. So the first question will be, identify the figure of speech in this line. So the first thing you need to tell me, is it a simile, is it a metaphor, personification? Now, if you just look at those, that's quite easy, hey? But then, second question will always be, explain why it's used, or explain the figure of speech. So this one counts 3 marks in total. Can you see it? We've broken it up in 2 parts. Identify and explain. Now, once again, pretend I don't know how this works. Tell me everything. Now, flaming letters is, of course, you've guessed it, a metaphor. Why? The letters are compared to flame. Can you see what I do now? So I've recognized as a metaphor, and then because it's a metaphor, there are obviously 2 things that are compared to each other. Then I write exactly what are the 2 things that are compared. The letters are compared to flames. But that will only give you 1 mark. I need to give more. In other words, why do you think the writer has done this? Well, the information in the letters are, it's hot. Or the information is going to cause pain. And that is why they're called flaming letters. Can you see what we've done? Identify it, explain the figure of speech to me, and take it back then. Why did the writer or the author decide to use this figure of speech here? And then you'll get your 3 marks easily. Now, remember, for the drama, for Macbeth and for Mashorima Africa, these are plays, and plays should be seen on a stage. So only for those 2, we have an additional question that's going to jump at you tomorrow. And that's, of course, stage directions. It's a wonderful question. Now, stage directions is where you are the director And you need to tell the character what he or she should do while saying the words. Please focus on the word do. So it's action. What actions should the character take? Now, let's look at a question, how they're going to put it. They're going to refer you to a certain line or lines. In this case, it's you're putting words in my mouth, Isabel. So that's the words that Tommy is saying. Question is now, if you were the director of this play, what would you tell Tommy to do when saying this line? I need you to pretend that you are on stage. You are the director. You are telling Tommy, Tommy, this and this is what you need to do. So what are we telling him to do? Can you think about it? Right. Now remember, I need you to be very specific as to what you should be doing. He should bulge his hands or put his hands in a fist. He should raise his eyebrows or frown. He should open his eyes widely. Now remember, look at your mark allocation. It's 2 marks, which means I need 2 very distinct actions. So, think back when we're doing visual literacy and we're doing the cartoon. What do we always focus on? We focus on facial expression and we focus on body language. When you do the face, we look at the eyes and the mouth. So when you're giving your instructions, focus on the eyes and the mouth, what the person can be doing. And for body language, focus on what he should be doing with his hands or what should he be doing with his body. Remember? 2 facts. Right. The next question that you're definitely going to see tomorrow is probably the end of your extract. You'll find the theme question. Now, I hope by now you realize how we've structured it. We've started quite easy questions. Remember those giveaway present questions we discussed? And then it became a little bit more difficult and a little bit more difficult. And then we have what we call the theme question. Now, 2 ways. We can either ask you to give you a theme and ask you to discuss it, or we can ask you to identify the theme in the extract or in the play or in the novel or in the drama or in the short story for that matter. Now, what is the most important thing you have to remember? The theme is the message. It's as easy as that. The theme is the message. And in those words, you see the word theme as well. It's the one thing your author wants to teach you. What is that one lesson he wants to teach you? Now, let's go to Machoroma, Africa. We're giving you a theme. We say one of the themes in the play is living a meaningful life. Okay, so we're giving you the theme here. We say the theme is living a meaningful life. Discuss how the theme is relevant to, and now we limit you to Isabel and Mr. M. So you have to refer to both of them. What does it mean to live a meaningful life? Now, that means you live with meaning, you live with a purpose. But you can only tell us about Isabel and Mr. M. You have to read your question very carefully. Don't just jump in and tell us anything. Be very careful. Now, in this case, you need to give us a lot of information. And remember, it must be brought back to your text. So, in this case, we say Isabel wants to make her life better by learning about Tommy and his people. Isabel promises Mr. M and Wapat's Bergpaas that she will contribute to the change in South Africa. Well, that's living a life of purpose. Mr. M, as a teacher, has meaning. He's living his purposeful life because he's giving his learners the best education. Can you see what we're doing here? Let's try forbidden love. Now you can see one of the themes is, of course, love. I told you. But again, we're going to limit you. And we're going to say, discuss the theme by referring to the relationship between Salome and Darby. Aha. So now we're specifically looking for love between these two characters. Not the rest, only these two. So how are you going to answer this? Now, let me help you. There's only one way, and that is the Peel method. And I'm sure you've heard about it so many times. Well, P stands for point. You make your point. You make a statement. Then you give me evidence. So you support your point with evidence. You explain to me. That's another E. And then L, link it for me to the question. So it's easy for me to say this, but how does it work in real life? Let me show you. Remember forbidden love, our theme was love, and we had to focus on the relationship between Salome and Darby. Now, I've broken it down for you. Can you see? Point, example, explain, link. So the point is, in this case, love doesn't always work out. Salome believed that Darby loved her until he beat up Mike, because she has a relationship with his sister. They've got an example. Now remember, this is the example you need to take from the text. And that's the one where she says, I've got this one letter left. Your son begged me not to expose him. And then we explain. Salome realizes that Darby will never admit that he has a relationship with her, even though they have a child together. And that's why she brings the letters up, to say, but here's the evidence. And in the end, well, the link, a relationship doesn't work. But in the end of the story, her child has a grandmother. Can you see how I've broken it down? And if you break your answer down like that, I promise you, you'll get your marks. What's the next one? So, the next one is open-ended questions. Now, open-ended questions means we're interested in your opinion. Now, be careful. Even though we want your opinion, you have to go back to the text. In this case, you have to agree or disagree with what we're going to say. And again, same rule applies. You have to use that Peel method. Make your point. Give your evidence. Explain why you're saying it and link it back to the question. That's the easiest way to do it. Your question format will be something like a statement, and then we'll say, discuss your view. Now, your answer has to be with yes, I agree, or no, I don't agree. Now, let's look at one. In Cry the Beloved Country, we give you a question. The question reads, Reverend Misimangu is fair in judging Absalom's girlfriend harshly. Sure. Break it up for yourself. So, Reverend has judged Absalom's girlfriend quite harshly. Is it fair? Now, discuss your views. And can you say it counts 3 marks, which means we have to give at least 3 facts. 1 fact, 1 mark. Now, let's look at a yes. We can say yes, because the young girl had an immoral lifestyle, and that's why the Reverend is negative towards that. She herself says that she's Absalom's 3rd husband. It's her 3rd husband. And to make matters worse, she's having Absalom's child, and they're not even married. Can you see the evidence I'm giving to say, yes, I think it's fair that he treated her harshly? But I could also say no. Let's look at my no. I could say no. He's a pastor. He should be forgiving in his nature. The poor girl is young. She's only 16. You can't judge somebody when they're 16 years old. They need guidance. And we have to remember that she was a victim of social abuse and neglect. He has to be sensitive towards her. Can you see how I've laid out my facts? I've stated clearly my point. I've given an example. I've explained it. And then everything makes sense and I could link it back to my question. Peel method is the way to go. Here's another one. My children were Africa. Open-ended question. Mr. M deserves his final fate. In other words, he deserves what he got. Discuss your view. Okay, we'll say yes, he deserves it. Remember, he gives the names of a political action committee to the police. Secondly, he gives the names of the learners who are boycotting his classes to the education department. And thirdly, he refuses to join the comrades. Obviously, then he deserves what he got. Can you see the facts I'm giving out here? Obviously, when you give that, you can give even more information. But I could also say no. I can say, no, he doesn't deserve this. Let's look at that one. He gives the names of the learners that are boycotting with the hope that they will come back to his classes. He gives the names to the action committee because he feels responsible. Well, he feels that they are responsible. He believes in communication, and therefore it doesn't support the comrades who are just using violence to get what they want to do. So he doesn't deserve his death at the end. Right. Can you see how you have to answer it? Now, I know up to now we have been focusing solely on the novel, the drama, and the short stories. So let's take a minute to work on the grasshopper. And how are you going to see? It's the same questions that are repeated. Well, this is one of the most beautiful sonnets that I'm sure you've ever read. Now, if you don't do poetry school, just sit back and relax and enjoy this one. It's really beautiful. The poetry of earth is never dead. When all the birds are faint with the hot sun and hide in cooling trees, a voice will run from hedge to hedge about the new-mown mead. That's the grasshopper's. He takes the lead in summer luxury. He has never done with his delights. For when tired out with fun, he rests at ease beneath some pleasant weed. The poetry of earth is ceasing never. On a lone winter evening, when the frost has wrought a silence, from the stove there shrills the cricket's song, in warmth increasing ever, and seems to the one in drowsiness half lost. The grasshoppers among some grassy hills. Ah, so beautiful. Now, remember, we started each text and we said there are giveaway questions. Now, when you're doing poetry, they're there again. So you will be given perhaps sentences. Now, remember, this is the other option that might be given to you, where we give you a sentence and we've left out words, and you need to complete the sentence. The poem is an example of an which kind of sonnet, which is divided into what and what. And the speaker believes that nature offers love and what? And humans should be aware of it. 4 marks. We even go so far as to give you the words. You just have to decide which ones. Can you see how easy that is? This is giveaway. In this case, it was a Petrarchian sonnet, divided in the octave and sestet, And it's all about joy that we should be aware of. Right. Obviously, in poetry, there will be figures of speech questions, just like there was in the drama and the novel. We'll give you a line and we'll ask exactly the same questions. Identify the figure of speech and why is it relevant? Now, you'll do exactly the same. So, identify pleasant weed. I know I'm talking to the expert. That's an oxymoron, hey? Do you know what oxymoron is? Two things don't fit together, form a new idea. So let's explain. So now we go step by step and we say the grasshopper finds rest under a weed. A weed is usually something that we don't want, but the grasshopper finds it comforting. For him, that's a perfect place. And that's why it's called a pleasant weed. Right. Again, just like we had in the play and in the novel and in the short story, there's a theme question. And in this case, the question says one of the themes in the poem is tenacity. Now, I hope you know what tenacity means. Discuss this theme. Can we give you the theme? We ask you to explain it. Now, tenacity means, do you know? Not to give up. This is so important. I've chosen this specifically, this theme, because I want you to remember that you cannot give up on your paper too. I know you can do this. You've got the tenacity. So if we were to answer it, remember, we need to explain how the theme is then evident in the poem. And then it's easy. We'll say both the grasshopper and the cricket is a symbol of tenacity. Even though they are extreme temperature, these poor guys don't give up. Whether it's extremely hot or extremely cold, they just keep on going. So we've got the summer heat. Can you see what I'm doing? I'm giving facts. The summer heat or winter frost. They love it so much, they keep on hopping, they keep on singing. Even all the other animals are tired and are keeping away from the cold and the sun and whatever. The grasshopper and the cricket, are they keeping poetry alive. And what poetry? The poetry of the earth. Isn't that beautiful? Remember, your answer must always go back to the text. Very, very important. I know this was a hectic session, but let's quickly summarize. What have you learned? Know how to use your index. Remember, for your poetry, there will be 2 poems that you have to do. If you're doing short stories, there will be 2 short stories. You have to do both of them. For the novel and the drama, there will be 2 extracts. Remember to do both. The one will be 17, the other one will be 18. Remember to use your index. You don't have to do everything. You only do the 2 genres you were taught in class. Remember that. Then, you have to know your literature text inside out, which means you have to know the setting, you have to characters, the plot, the conflict, the theme, figure of speech. You have to know it. So make sure you know it on the points of your fingers, inside out. Right. Know your characters' names. Remember we spoke about that. And can you spell them correctly? Right. And we have done so many different ways of answering questions. But they were recipes I gave you. Do you remember with irony you have to use a but? So just remember, when you're sitting tomorrow in that exam hall, writing paper 2, remember how to answer. Probably the most important thing I can tell you is to keep calm. Breathe. Stay centered. I know you can do this. You have studied so hard and you've worked so hard to get to here. Believe in yourself. If a question is difficult, read it 3 times. Remember we said that. Read 3 times. Think twice and write once. And if it's difficult, leave a space open for yourself and come back to it. I bet you when you come back to it, you'll have the answer. You have to believe in yourself. You can do this. So, thank you for a wonderful afternoon. I want to wish you all of the very best. Study hard, do your utmost best, and all of the best for the rest of your prelim exam. I hope to see you soon. Thank you for watching this lesson. See you next time. Goodbye.